Good evening. Welcome to our second public hearing on the FY25 budget. With that, we're going to ask Melissa to come up and present it to us.
Good evening. This is the presentation for the second public hearing of the fiscal year 2025 budget. It will take us from July 1st of 2024 through June 30th of 2025. So we have the same presentation for you this evening that was presented at the first public hearing with a few updates on some changes. Okay, so in planning the budget, we did keep the county's mission in mind. And it is strategically planned to provide high-quality services in a fiscally responsible manner while keeping the county's strategic goals at the forefront. And with that, we'll go ahead and look at the general fund proposed budget for fiscal year 25. With the proposal at $40,736,394. And this represents a balanced budget with the collected revenues matching the expenditures for the year. This number has increased by $3,066 since we last looked at the proposal. And after kind of go through some of the slides, I'll show you where those changes are. So we're recommending an increase of 4.89% from prior year. Well, details on revenues. The chart on the right-hand side of the screen shows the revenues by sources as proposed in comparison to our FY24 amended budget. So you can see that property taxes represent 47.9% of the general fund budget, with local option sales taxes at 26.3% and other taxes at 11.4%. Looking at the chart on the right, you can see that there is an increase in the property tax revenues of approximately $1.1 million. This increase is related to our real property tax digest growth. So we've looked at where we are in the current fiscal year and added the growth onto that value. So it's growth of about $600,000. In local option sales tax, you can see a relatively flat budget plan for FY25. This is based on the experience that we've seen this year with our increases slowing. So we are not planning on increases in sales taxes. And other taxes slightly less than current fiscal year related to decreases in the real estate transfer tax and in intangible taxes. And those decreases being offset with an increase in budgeted insurance premium taxes in FY25. Those other taxes, that revenue line item does represent an increase in the budget of $3,066 for insurance premium taxes as compared to the last presentation. And all the other items are relatively straightforward. Charges for services, licenses and permits. Grants decreasing slightly because of FY24 had some of the ARP funds recognized. We won't be receiving those any longer. Fines and forfeitures. Investment income is less than what our collections are. We are not budgeting for actual experience and the result of decline in interest rates or market environment. So being conservative here, we don't want to rely on investment income for our operations. Rents and fees relatively flat, and sales are not budgeted in fiscal year 25 like they were in the current fiscal year. So you see the decrease in the budget there. And taking a look at how those revenues will be spent by functions of the county government. Our law enforcement, jail, and E911 represents 29% of our general fund budget, with administration and operations at 17.6%, public works at 10.2%, and parks and recreation at 10.3%. So again, you see the proposal compared to the FY24 amended numbers. Of note in these line items, the increase that you see in law enforcement, jail, and E911 is related to personnel increases. Administration and operations decreasing is related to the sale of the assets we had in the current year being transferred to the capital fund and being reserved for projects. We're not planning to have that occur in FY 25. Public Works includes projects in the current fiscal year that are not planned in fiscal year 2025. Parks and Recreations is one of the line items that's changed since last presented. We've received our custodial contract, which is now increasing the budget at $47,096 for Parks and Recreation. Same thing for joint governmental programs, increase in the budget for custodial services at the libraries for $6,500. And change in the courts line item, we are increasing to match the public defender's original request and decreasing the district attorney's budget due to a decrease in grant match required. Some other items that are included in all of these line items overall, so that you kind of have a feel for what we're budgeting for. In the law enforcement, jail, and E911 category, we are increasing the small equipment that they purchase each year in their phase replacement program. And this includes increases in armor, tasers, car cameras, and radars for patrol. We are upgrading the jail locking system, and we have an agency-wide conversion to Office 365 budgeted, as well as our annual lifecycle management funds towards computers, body cameras, and mobile data terminals. In administration and operations, we've included our on-site IT services provided by our third-party contractor, adding UPS backups to the lifecycle management program in IT, as well as a storage area network upgrade. In GIS, we've included the annual flyover, and in the fleet department, we've included our vehicle lifecycle management replacements and a tire machine and an AC machine. In Public Works, we have included 2 replacements of ground maintenance equipment, ELMIG grant funding of $750,000. And also just a reminder, in Public Works, other than the grant, the paving and related services have moved over to the T-SPLOST fund in FY 24 and will remain there in FY 25. In Parks and Recreation, we have equipment included for their groundskeeping as well. Small equipment items such as tables, fitness center equipment, and sporting equipment. Economic development includes our bonds, debt service payments of $2.2 million. That includes Costco, Caterpillar, and Parkway Boulevard, noting that this is the last fiscal year that we'll have a proposal for Parkway Boulevard's bonds, as they will be paid in full in FY 25. For public safety, we have training equipment, a forcible entry simulator, a live burn container, training mannequins and CPR mannequins, and AED trainers, as well as our annual AED lifecycle management replacements, and some improvements planned for some of the fire station buildings, and our animal services building receiving a key card entry system and replacement of kennel doors. In the clerk of courts, we're continuing the indexing of files so that they can be accessed digitally. In courts, we've included probation fees, a grant match for the district attorney's office. For property appraisal, we've included the implementation of interactive appeal software. And in elections, we're budgeting for the general election and the possibility of a runoff. So instead of looking at the expenditures by function, we can see here the classification of spending, so what the funds will be spent on. Personnel and benefits make up 55% of our general fund budget. And you can see the increase here of about $1.6 million. That's related to an increase to the base pay chart of $2,500 and step increases for employees who qualify included in the proposed budget. It does not include any new additions or retired positions, but does include a transfer in position from the fleet department into the planning department, as well as 1 part-time to full-time transition. Operations and maintenance makes up 26% of the general fund budget, and the decrease that you see here is largely related to public works projects in FY 24 that are not planned in FY 25. Capital outlays make up 1.3% of the budget, and we'll take a look at what those outlays are on the next slide. Allocations to other agencies are at 2.7%. Debt service makes up 5.6%, and support to other funds of the government at 8.5%. So this is the proposed capital purchases from the general fund, most of which you've already heard. IT storage area network upgrade, fleet maintenance vehicle program, jail locking system upgrades, public works equipment, and infrastructure, and also parks facilities equipment. Okay, in addition to the general fund, there's also other funds that make up our total budget. So inclusive of the general fund, special revenue, capital funds, and enterprise funds is the total proposed budget at $76,634,635. Represents an increase of 2.15% over prior year, with that increase being related to the general fund changes that we just discussed. So here's same format. You can see the total budget proposed revenues by source. I do want to point out changes from the last presentation. In other taxes, the insurance premium taxes were increased by $3,066. And our grants have changed as well. We have increased funding for our Family Connection grant based on new information, and decreased funding for our Victim Services grants due to new information as well. So you can see that the total budgeted revenues do not match the total budgeted expenditures or proposed budget expenditures. The variance is 1.6 million. We are proposing to use 1.6 million in fund balance in our capital fund and water resources fund. You could also see on the chart to the left, the percentages of the total budget, property taxes being at 26%, water and sewer revenues at 19%, and our local option sales tax, transportation special local option sales tax, which is T-SPLOST, and special purpose local option sales tax, which is SPLOST, combined, make up 37.2% of the total budgeted revenue. Okay, and this is a listing again of how those total expenditures will be used. Of note, changes here in the Parks and Recreation Department, we increased the line item for the custodial contract, and the same for joint governmental programs. That contains the increase for the custodial contract and the Family Connection grant. As well as the courts, we have decreased professional services in our Special Revenue Victim Services Fund due to the loss of one grant, and we have increased that line item for the Public Defender's contract. Water resources makes up 20.1% of the expenditures of the total budget, with Public Works at 19.4%. This now you see T-SPLOST included in that section of the chart as well. Law enforcement jail E911 at 17.5%. And administration and operations at 15.2%, with that category containing the payouts to municipalities for SPLOST and T-SPLOST portions. Specifically looking at the capital fund proposed expenditures, we have a county facilities fund budgeted for building improvements or upgrades needed at $50,000. The jail and public safety life cycle management program budgeted. The next, let's see, all of the following categories that make up fund balance usage. So E911's Viber communication upgrade and the UPS backups at the tower are coming from their life cycle management funds. The Parks FY24 mowing equipment is for mowing equipment that was budgeted in the general fund in fiscal year 24 that won't be received until after July the 1st. And the Hog Mountain multi-use path preliminary services, all of those items using fund balance are coming from assigned fund balance and capital. The capital fund here is different than the general fund capital expenditures in that this fund is intended for multiple year projects or purchases that span more than just one fiscal year. Our SPLOST 2021 budget is $6,513,330 and consists of these items here. We have debt services for the administrative building and our parks, GO bond, paving at $2 million. The fire rescue vehicle and equipment includes the SUPFIN pumper truck that's also budgeted in the current fiscal year that won't be received until after July the 1st. as well as some rescue equipment. The water and sewer facilities includes land and easements that might be needed for the Epps Pump Station and McNutt Creek Sewer Interceptor, as well as design services to start the Veterans Park Lift Station upgrade. And our T-Splost is a capital fund as well. Total budget is $10,696,150 proposed for paving of $6 million, related services including minor paving and repairs, professional services, roadside care, and non-paved road maintenance at $3,149,500. Our water resources is one of our enterprise funds with a proposed budget of $15,471,581, which is an increase of 0.65% over prior year. And here you can see the revenues on the left and the expenses on the right-hand side. Couple items to note here, the revenues for wastewater and water both are decreasing in budget. We do have rate increases as recommended by the rate study with sewer increases at 4.75% and water increases at 3.5%. But those increases are offset by a reduction in capacity and water availability fees. And we're just bringing that budget back down so that we're not so reliant on one-time fees should they not occur. And the expenses by classification. Major changes, if you look at the capital outlay line, our current fiscal year has a budget of $22 million. That is related to the Caws Creek upgrade project and the Bear Creek design services, both of which are multiple year projects and approved with multiple year budgets. So as we go into FY25, the current remaining contract balance on those accounts will roll forward into FY25. So it kind of explains the discrepancy in that decrease. Debt services decreasing as well. That no longer includes the Series 2012 bond in our proposed budget. That was paid in full in September of 2023, but it does include our GFA note interest that will remain interest only until completion of the Caws Creek facility, as well as the 2023 Hard Labor Creek bond issuance debt service. As you can see here also that our expenses exceed revenues. So we are proposing that we used fund balance, and that fund balance is largely used for the capital outlay projects. So just to summarize how our budget is meeting the strategic goals of the county by looking at public safety commitments, transportation maintenance and improvements, water and sewer infrastructure, and our fleet phase replacement program. Public safety makes up 42% of our general fund budget. The chart on the right-hand side represents the total budget for public safety of $19.9 million, showing their operations and capital items. Capital items for the jails, the locking control system. For fire, EMS, and EMA, it's the sup and pumper truck funded by SPLOST. And for E911 includes the Viper communications upgrade and UPS devices. Also in the operations, we talked about some of the equipment. We've also increased training budgets for the jail and patrol departments and included an upgrade in fiber communications for our E911. And remained at our current levels for animal services and professional services and general supplies as were amended in fiscal year 24 due to the increased demand in their services. Transportation maintenance and improvements at 19.4% of the total budget. It's $14.8 million. The chart here represents the portion that's paving, general fund paving being funded by grant funds, $750,000, SPLOST funding $2 million in paving, and T-SPLOST funding $6 million for a total in paving of $8,750,000. Water and sewer infrastructure plan. What's next? Okay, well, I'll cover it for you until we can advance the slide. most of the services provided here, so this is going to illustrate the capital services that we saw on the water resources slide of 993,000. Is engineering and design services for Calls Creek Phase 2 and 3, McNutt Creek Sewer Extension, Epps Bridge Lift Station Expansion, Daniels Bridge Lift Station Expansion, and the Dowdy Road Sewer Extension, and Veterans Park Lift Station designs. We have enough funding included here in capital to start the designs and easements that might be necessary up to the point where we can get a contract amount for you. And at that time, the contracts will be presented to the board with funding information and a request of budget amendment. Also included in the capital is an equipment line item for $124,000 for needed equipment and the vehicle replacements for water resources as well. And finally, the fleet replacement program typically includes law enforcement vehicles with SPLOST. The board has approved that those be purchased in the current fiscal year, so there is no budget for vehicles in law enforcement in FY25. Fire, we're proposing $629,820 for the Sutphen pumper truck from SPLOST. Our fleet requests are funded from the general fund at $265,000 and include vehicles for the Parks and Rec Department, Tax Assessor's Office, the Fleet Department, as well as a bucket truck for the Road Department. And Water Resources funds their vehicles as well for a total of $94,000. That would allow them to life cycle management additions. So that does conclude the presentation for the second public hearing. With the changes that we've included, I'm reposting the presentation to the website so that it will be updated. We also are going to have the one-page budget summary on the bulletin board, updated with both of the libraries and posted on the website as well as the fee schedule posted on the website. And I do want to let you know of one change on the fee schedule that is since the last hearing. In the planning department, the preliminary plat and site plan third reviews and subsequent reviews have been revised to include final plat, third reviews and subsequent reviews included on that line item, each at $150. So the fee did not change, but the description on that fee schedule did change. So if I can answer any questions, please let me know. And thank you for your time.
Any questions from commissioners on Melissa?
Mr. Chairman, I did have one. I want to get some clarification on how the proposed or the conversation we're having about the probation proposal. Is the budget that's been presented based on current plan or what we anticipate?
What we anticipate.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Any public comment?
I'm Steve Alshire, Oconee County. 3 times the phrase smart government, smart growth, and smart infrastructure. Can someone define what smart is? Because it's kind of a trigger phrase for some people. And also, some accounting systems regard depreciation and amortization as a revenue, not an expense. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment?
Good evening. I'm Pam Hendricks. And I know that we're talking about property taxes increasing by 1.1 million, and I'm wondering how the new assessed values have not been set. And I was talking to Mr. Haygood about this before the meeting. I own properties in 4 different counties, and I've gotten my assessments in every other county, but not Oconee. And I can't figure out why we're so late. And I've been very attentive to the school board budget and the county budget. And as you'll recall last year, particularly with the school board, they were told by the tax assessor, or they said they had consulted with the tax assessor, and they were told what they thought the increase was going to be. And then it was a lot more. And they ended up, if I recall, 26 million extra. So they rolled back the millage a bit, but they ended up getting a lot more money than their original proposed budget. And so I'm wanting to know, and I guess this might be a question for Ms. Braswell, but how have you arrived that the property tax is going to increase by 1.1 million? And then, anyway, can you answer that?
Now, you need to rest your questions or comments to the board.
Okay, well, can y'all tell me? Well, good. Okay, I figured y'all wouldn't know. But do you know? I mean, have you talked to the tax assessor? How did we decide that it was gonna go up 1.1 million? What if it then goes up 5 million? When he actually sets everything, when he actually mails it out?
You're welcome to continue your comments.
Oh, y'all are,
This is not a Q and A session.
okay, I'm not
So-
finished. Okay, well, is anybody, do I have a time limit?
Yes, ma'am. 3 minutes like normal.
Okay. Well, I would like to know that. I did just want to mention that, in 4 years, the budget went from 58,461,169 to this year's proposed budget of 76,834,919. Now, that's not upgraded, because I got this off, I printed it out, and I know it's changing slightly. But that's an increase of $18,373,750 in 4 years. I just contend that we are supposed to be a conservative Republican county, and that means limited government, limited spending, and our spending keeps really going up. I mean, that's about an average of almost 6% every year. I know it's not going up quite that much. I think this year it's going up, what was it, 4.89%. But I just contend that people are hurting out there and they are struggling. And while the business owners and the property owners, their revenues are going down. And government is just growing, growing, growing. And I just ask that you try to keep this under control. Thank you.
Any other public comment? Reference to some of the comments made, I would just say that you want to know what the definition of smart growth, smart government, that's what we're doing here. I didn't quite catch your comment on depreciation. I'll be happy to get with you afterwards to kind of better understand what you're asking. That's fine. I'll get with you afterwards. So the revenue, so what we do is we look at our expenses, all our departments come in. We figure out what it's going to take to operate the government correctly. Then we start looking at revenue. Our revenue estimate is based on our estimation of what real growth will be in the digest this year. That may be correct, that may not be correct. When we get the final, that's why we set the digest in August and September. Those finals numbers come in, they go through the tax commissioner to create the final calculation of what real growth is. And then our millage rate will be set from that. You talked about growth in the overall spending. I will say T-Splosh is by itself is $10 million a year. You also have real growth occurring in the county, Costco, and just the real growth with new buildings coming in, as well as our less than 200 homes a year coming in. So all that real growth, as your population increases, will increase your need for the money. And also T-Splosh coming in at 10 million, resulting in a millage rate reduction of 1.1 mil total after we got in the final numbers for the digest. So I would disagree with anything the government, any statements that the government is growing is out of control. We are a growing community, so our expenses will continue as long as our revenue is going up as well. Anybody else? All right, that'll end our public hearing on the FY 25 budget. And with that, welcome to the Oconee County Board of Commissioners meeting. Today is Tuesday, May 21st, 2024. After a moment of silence, we're going to ask Commissioner Harden to lead us in the pledge. Please stand. First item of business will be to approve the agenda.
Make a motion to approve the agenda submitted.
Have a motion second, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, motion carries. Any statements or remarks from citizens on anything not on tonight's agenda? Any statements or remarks from commissioners? With that, we'll move on to our Chamber of Commerce annual update on economic development. Courtney?
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for allowing me to come and share a little bit of an update with you all. It's been a great year for economic development in the county. A lot of the things you already know about, but I'll just reiterate some of the things that are happening. We'll start kind of in the retail world. That was touched on just earlier when we talk about SPLOST and all of that revenue that's coming in. A lot of that is generated by the retail behemoth, which is known as Costco for our community. Again, I'll reiterate that we are the smallest community that a Costco has ever located in. And when we worked for 14 years with them to get them here, we kept saying, we think this is what's going to happen. The numbers show this, but we didn't have anything to completely share. It was just kind of what we had estimated based on drive time and population coming in. But what we can say now to them and others is everything that we said was 100% accurate and true. They have far exceeded their sales revenue for the year. So they were open a full year. November 15th of 2023 was their full year opening. And they have far exceeded, almost doubled their conservative revenue estimations that they had when they first came to our community. So we're beyond thrilled with what we have seen with people coming in and spending dollars in our community, which allows us to pave those roads a little quicker, allows us to beef up our infrastructure a little quicker, which is great for both visitors, businesses coming in, and residents alike. What we also have noted that with Costco landing here, we've been able to really see our retail growth start to flourish here. So I'll tell you, if you aren't aware, our Walmart is the 4th most profitable Walmart in the state of Georgia. Our Hobby Lobby ranks 1 to 2, depending on the month, really, between it's at this Hobby Lobby here in Oconee and the one in Forsyth County as the most profitable Hobby Lobby in the state of Georgia. We also are seeing incredible numbers coming from our other small businesses that are in our community, not just the large retailers, but our small businesses as well. And I think that that says a lot about our community. Visitors are coming in, they're spending their dollars here because it's a great place to do that. It feels safe, it's clean, it's welcoming. The people here are that way as well. And it's also because of the medical infrastructure that's poured into our community over the last several years, especially by St. Mary's and Piedmont Athens Regional. Their investment into our community has allowed people to choose our community as their place for lab testing, their physician's visits, their sports medicine, whatever it is, they can do it here. And after they do those appointments, they're likely to go shopping and enjoy our restaurants and all of the retail establishments that we have, not only at Epsbridge, but in our cities as well. And so what we've also seen is a huge increase in people looking to come to our community and fill that node. That's what Epicenter 1, 2, and 3 is built for, is to recruit more retail to our community. And that's exactly what's happening. I will note that Bed Bath & Beyond as a corporation filed for bankruptcy and that space is vacant. We're currently working to backfill that space. In fact, the developer was out in Las Vegas at the shopping center convention, which is a national shopping center convention, this past week, meeting with prospective tenants of that space. And we look to have that space filled very quickly. Also, Party City was one of those corporations that also filed for bankruptcy within the last year. But this shouldn't be surprising because of what I've just shared with you. Party City remains one of the only profitable stores under their umbrella, and that the one that's here in Oconee still remains profitable. And so they're going to continue to leave that open as long as that it remains profitable. Their working corporations now are working on balancing their online presence with their brick and mortar. And so a lot of these companies are not closing for good and going away. They're just restructuring and reorganizing so that they can balance both brick and mortar and online presence. We're really thrilled to see a lot of movement. We've had some interest in the theater to renovate what's happening there and to kind of grow their within the current footprint, but to grow what they're doing, providing a bit more family entertainment because that works for this community. So we look forward to seeing kind of some of their renovations happening, and that would be about a $4 million renovation to the $2 million that they spent just before the pandemic. Also, Hobby Lobby has spent about 2 million expanding their footprint, and that's to allow them to take over what was used for storage, to actually have retail, product there and increase their footprint because of they're doing so well there. We will have future development going down Parkway Boulevard, and we're meeting with prospects currently. I will tell you that as we've gone through this process for a number of years now, sometimes it's okay to say no. And so we're vetting those folks that are looking in our community to make sure that it's a good fit for who we are, our community and our visitors alike. And so I think we have a lot of really great opportunity on the horizon out there in the Epps Center, as well as what's happening in Watkinsville and Wire Park. A lot of those spaces, they've just leased their last retail space in Wire Park. They're still looking for a few more food establishments in the grid, but things are moving great out there. We're watching the residences go up as well, but the businesses within that community are thrilled that they're there and they're doing quite well. So we're excited about that. I'll move away from retail and kind of step into a bigger kind of manufacturing footprint that's expanding here in our community, and that's with IMI. So we've been working for over a year with Industrial Mechanical, who's currently here in our industrial park in Watkinsville. They have about 16 acres, give or take, that they've been kind of working between. They've got multiple facilities out in the industrial park and others off-site as well. And what they're doing is we're working towards closing. We hope to have this closed, the deal closed sometime middle of next month, for their corporate headquarters, which will allow them to operate about 300,000 square feet of space, including their corporate headquarters building. Park space that they have so graciously said that they would like to include public participation in playing on the green space that they have there, or any future trails that they may have on that 52 acres that's out at Gateway Industrial Park. So we're really excited about their expansion. It will allow them to double their staff capacity. And they've got stuff in the pipeline that they really need to get done. So this is going to happen pretty quickly. We'll start to see dirt move just as soon as the deal is closed. And again, they are going to vacate the industrial park in Watkinsville over about 3-year phase out period, but they're going to hold those buildings and lease them out to others. And so they won't be vacating entirely. They'll kind of phase out over 3 years and then lease those buildings back as they empty them. So we're excited about watching those buildings become kind of something new out there. And IMI really growing out along 316 Aiken Road.
Any questions from board members? Thank you.
I don't have any questions, but I will say this. I think if somebody's looking for a definition of smart growth, I would say that what we have tried to do out in that business area of Epps Bridge, whether it was originally planned that way or we got lucky or we did the best we could, I check car tags when I go. And unfortunately, I've been in the cardiac and I've been to the orthopedic rehab past few years, and you check the car tags and you go through the original one, Epps Bridge Center, or you go to Costco and you look at the out-of-town car tags that are represented there. There may, and I count them and look at them all the time when I go. There may be 15 cars if I get there at a good time before it gets crowded. Maybe I see 2 Oconee County tags. The rest are outside. And out of state, or they're from Baldwin County, Elbert County, you name it. But they're also going to the medical facilities. I know that for a fact. I've talked to people who were at some of the stores. So they go to the doctors, they go shopping, and they're bringing money to Oconee County, which allows us to do things. So I think, and I'm a South Georgia person. I grew up in South Georgia. My family's in deep South Georgia. And if you drive from here, like I did just the other day going to Savannah, you see a difference. You see what folks don't have. And they may, that's fine. But you still got to educate kids. You still got to pay for the sheriff's department. You're still gonna have to have Parks and Rec. And somebody's got to pay it. And if you can take the burden off the property tax, and put it more on sales tax, I think you got a much better opportunity to help the citizens of your county. And so I commend what we're doing. We keep doing it. Obviously, people like to come to Oconee County and shop. If they didn't, they wouldn't be coming. So anyway, I think we're doing a pretty good job. And again, to me, that looks like it's a great relationship. The medical, shopping, restaurants are helped. When I came here in 1980, of course, you guys grew up in Oconee County. There wasn't a lot of opportunity to buy merchandise in Oconee County. Now you got people, it's the flip. I see Clark County tags out at our shopping area. They love to come, and I tell them, I'm glad to have you. Because you help offset what we have to pay. And you're not going to get away from paying the sheriff's department. You're not going to get away from Parks and Rec. Cars, police cars are a lot more expensive nowadays. So you got to get the money somewhere, and I would much rather have a better mix of not going to the property owner. It's been mentioned about property tax. You know, we don't assess the property, but I think I have been a part to at least 5 or 6 millage cuts. If we can do it again this year, we'll cut the millage rate. And some people may not like that, but I think it's the right thing to do to the property owner. Otherwise, and something was mentioned about the school board. I'm not on the school board, I was, but they didn't cut it like we did. Theirs was considered a tax increase, but the county didn't. We went below that number. So I think for anybody to think that we're trying to grow the government just for the sake of growing it, I think that's ludicrous, to be honest with you. And I'll make that statement tonight because thankfully we'll be over with the election here in a little while. And so we don't have to keep playing politics. So anyway, Mr. Chairman, that's about all I'm gonna say.
Mr. Chairman, I have a point, and I want to address this to you. Of course, thank you and the staff that working on what you have done and accomplished. When I'm invited to speak to small groups, I try to, talk about the positive things. They ask, I figure they want to know about industry. No, they want to know the update on the varsity. So please give us an update on the varsity so I can respond to these citizens.
I'll do that. I should have started with that actually, because you're exactly right. If of all the questions that I get asked or the phone calls that I take about economic development, the varsity is mentioned almost every single time. So this is what's happening with the varsity. It is 100% true that they purchased the building, the old Burger King building at Butler's Crossing. They have also have the land behind Hobby Lobby. They have owned that for quite some time. But currently they are working on a large project at their home location in Atlanta, and that's taking up the vast majority of their time, energy, and effort. And so everything else is kind of on the back burner. It doesn't mean they're not going to locate here. It just means it's not the top of the priority right now, but they do still have their hands on both of those sites. And so obviously with the work being done at Butler's Crossing, that's not the location that they're looking at right now to move anything with until that road work infrastructure gets completed there at Butler's, which will happen soon. And so we may see some shift in what their momentum is here locally within the next 6 to 8 months, but nothing sooner than that.
Okay, thank you.
No, ma'am, not during the meeting. Our next item is discuss and consider the confirmation of the Senior Center Director.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It was a little sad that Mary Howard retired. I'm sure she's not quite as sad as I am about it, but good news. I'd like to ask the board for confirmation of Christy Biddle as the Senior Center Director. Christy has currently been the Assistant Director for the past year for the Senior Center. Prior to that, she's got exhaustive experience with Legacy Link, dealing with different senior centers throughout the region. She has a bachelor's degree in human human behavior. Excuse me, a bachelor's degree human services from UNG and a master's degree in org leadership from Bernal. With that, and she's here tonight. She's been doing a great job and is well suited to the role. She will do Oconee County proud. And I would ask that the Board of Commissioners confirm my appointment as Christy Biddle as Senior Center Director.
Any questions from commissioners? We'll entertain a motion.
I make that motion as stated.
Second. We have a motion second. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Motion carries. Next item is discussing ordinance to amend the human resources policies and procedures of Oconee County. Go
As the board knows, we were approached by one of the constitutional officers due to an issue that arose from a marriage in their office that would have violated the anti-nepotism provisions of the snow policy. And, you know, constitutional officers did not necessarily have to fall within our human resource policy, but they consented to come under it some 30 years ago, I guess. And once you're in it, you're in it. So, you asked me to prepare to, the language that would provide a way that, constitutional officer could deal with this. And I've taken the existing paragraphs of, section F of chapter 4 and added to that, that if a constitutional officer is a party to the nepotism, it may only be waived if constitutional officer is not a party to the marriage. So in other words, it could be a son marrying an employee or something like that. The employee will be supervised and evaluated by a county official other than the constitutional officer. The marriage occurs subsequent to employment, so it's something that has happened with an employee after they came to work for the county. And the constitutional officer comes to the Board of Commissioners and makes a declaration of the waiver no later than the second regular meeting of the Board of Commissioners after the occurrence of marriage, which shall include a description of how each stated condition is satisfied. Immediate family is spouse, parent, son, daughter, brother, sister, grandparents, whether by blood or by.
Any questions on the proposed amendments? You all for consent agenda?
Yep. Yes.
Do we have any public comment on this item? Referring to the personnel ordinance for Oconee County. You can find a copy of this on the website or changes to that document. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Next item is discuss change order for phase 2 construction of Calls Creek upgrade to 3 million gallons a day.
Evening, everyone. How y'all doing? I won't take up too much of your time. We're currently doing the upgrade to Calls Creek wastewater treatment plant. We've completed phase 1, and we've had quite a bit of leftover contingency money for owner's contingency, and would really like to transfer that to phase 2. As far as the total project cost between phase 1 and phase 2, it'll be a net of 0 as far as the change order goes. But phase 2 is quite a bit more complicated as far as excavation and rock and things of that nature. And I would feel better to have a safety net of that owner's contingency in phase 2. But I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Since we're talking about project, can we go over, since we've been talking about the budget, where the money comes from that's paying for this? So everybody understands.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. Sorry. Adam Layfield, Oconee County Water Resources Director. Layfield, Layfield. And the change order amount for, just so I didn't state that, it's in y'all's memo. It's a $785,315.
Now, I believe the funding's coming through, this is through the GFA loan that we have, but all this is paid for with operational funds from the water resources. So it's from ratepayers who pay on the debt on this.
It's the $25 million loan we got, the board approved a few months back. So,
Let me, just for clarification, we're doing this for what reason? I know, but everybody doesn't seem to know, so
uh,
gotta help them out some.
the more people you got, the more sewer and water you gotta treat.
We're doing it
Oop.
for economic development, so,
Yeah.
we don't have any additional residential sewer capacity at this point. So all this is for future economic development in Oconee County.
Thank you.
Yeah, what he said.
Mr. Chairman, just to make sure that, all we're doing tonight is approving that this unused portion be moved to the contingency fund for the next phase.
Yes.
We're not actually approving it to be expended for anything other than moving to the contingency fund.
We're not increasing the total amount of the project by moving it to a different phase. Saying that right, Melissa?
But we're moving phase one contingency money to phase two contingency.
Right, it may or may not get, it didn't get used in phase one. There's a possibility.
But my question is, before it's spent out of contingency, it comes back through here.
Not on this.
No.
Does it?
We make that mic's a little less hot, please. Sorry. We view the project, non-finance people, as kind of one big project. We're upgrading Calls Creek from 1.5 MGD to 3 MGD. Within the different phases, both from engineering and the finance perspective, there's multiple phases. Each phase has its own kind of specified contract, even though the board itself has approved an entire sum to it. And so phase one is rapidly, the initial phase is rapidly hitting completion, has been completed. There's excess funds there within the confines that have been appropriated already by the Board of Commissioners. We just, from a county perspective, wish to move that over into the next phase of money instead of just sitting there and dissipating, because there are still a lot of unknowns dealing with the plan itself. But overall, we don't have authority as a staff member to go beyond what the Board of Commissioners has approved and appropriated as a total lump sum. We're just asking for it to be moved to the existing one within that lump sum. So we don't have any more headroom above that.
Thank you.
Any other questions? You're out for consent? Thank you. Any public comment? Our next item is discuss the Oconee County Parks and Rec insurance proceeds for damaged property.
Thank you, Chairman. This request is for Herman C. Michael Park. Due to a vehicle accident, we had some damages located at one of the light poles and the fencing. We are receiving insurance proceeds for that. The current amount is, it's pending, so it's just less than $25,000, but there will be additional insurance proceeds once the work is completed. So the request this evening is to allow for a budget amendment of $25,000 to both revenues and expenses so that we can use the insurance damage proceeds to repair the light pole.
Any questions on this one? You're out for consent? Yes. Any public comment? Now we'll move to our discussion of the Oconee County probation contract. So just a little history is probation is a sentence of imprisonment that's suspended so that you avoid serving time in jail. In exchange for avoiding the jail time, you're required to follow court-imposed rules called probation conditions. Courts have broad discretion in imposing conditions, which typically include reporting to a probation officer regularly, paying fines and monthly supervision fees, and performing community service. If you deliberately violate a condition, the court may revoke some of all your remaining probation time and make you spend that time in jail. Convicted persons allowed to continue living at home and continue working to support their families. So probation is designed for people we're mad at but not scared of. Probation services private probation services started in Georgia 32 years ago, and mainly for city courts in the state. Department of Corrections provided misdemeanor and felony probation until the state stopped providing misdemeanor probation services in the year 2000. The state continues to provide felony probation services. Probation service providers, private and public, are monitored by the Misdemeanor Probation Oversight Unit, which falls under the Department of Community Supervision. In Oconee County, on average, 80% of all probationers reside outside of Oconee County. On January 27th, 2023, Judge Norris advised me that of his intent to create a circuit-wide probation using the Athens-Clarke County probation services. So in Oconee right now, we have a private probation provider. They have 2 full-time employees right now and working on their third, so they're at 2.5 right now. Their average case count is around 215 cases per full-time employee. The current cost to the taxpayer is $0. Complaints on service provided by this private company is 0. The Athens-Clarke County Probation is a government probation service provider reporting to the chief judge. Probation officers are post-certified peace officers, meaning they are armed with arrest powers. Cases per probation officer in Athens-Clarke County is less than 100 cases per. The cost of the Athens-Clarke County taxpayer at this time is $1.853 million. There's no complaints on their service provided either. Some of you may remember we had the Superior Court judges here. We've had several meetings over the last year about probation, private versus public. And so I got a summary of the top issues that I feel like were raised during this process. And the first one is case counts. The current contract calls for supervised caseload of less than 250 per employee. That's in the contract that we're working under right now. We've been getting data from the service provider, and all data collected shows full compliance with case count restrictions. There's concerns about the company leaving for either lack of profitability or just needing to leave. All communications with the current provider indicate a desire to remain in Oconee County. Another issue brought up was arrest powers. Our private probation is not allowed to arrest people. When you go and look, over 80% of all probationers in Georgia are served by private probation. They do not provide employees with arrest powers. Less than 5 of all the public probation service provide employees with arrest powers. So it's very limited on the number of organizations that do have arrest powers. In Oconee County, if Oconee County were to create its own probation service, we would not provide employees with arrest powers. Providing employees with arrest powers would put us in direct competition with the sheriff's office or the very limited number of qualified people that are out there to do this kind of job now. Site visits, that's another one that Clarke County is able to do with their post-certified officers, to go out and go to somebody's house or place of employment and check to see that they're meeting the conditions of their probation. In the current version of the contract that you have before you tonight, we are providing a limited number of intensive probation slots that include site visits within Oconee County. And big thank you to the sheriff and his office for working with us to help to address this concern. So the way it's set up now is the sheriff's office is committed to 12 site visits per month, up to 12 per month. So we'll have 12 intensive probation slots available to the court system. And then they'll work with the sheriff's office. The probation provider will provide them with a check sheet to go out and say, here's what we need you to look for and check. They'll return that report back into probation, and they will make decisions on whether they're compliant or not. So we're just fact gathering for the probation system. There were some philosophical differences or concerns. Some of our judges just don't believe a for-profit company should provide probation service. Pre-trial monitoring was also an issue, but we found out that CRSA can and does currently provide pre-trial monitoring in Oconee County. And then we had some concern over indigent cases and what that definition of indigent is. So some of the concern raised over the profitability of the company was based on charges being waived for indigent offenders. The current version of the contract that is before you now tonight allows the contractor to charge the county a reduced rate for indigent cases. So if they hit in their business model, they're able to absorb a certain number of indigent cases. If it starts to be a strain on them, they have the option to charge Oconee County. We will in turn charge the Superior Court budget for those cases. And that they're giving, we've got that at a reduced rate, so we're getting a discount. They don't have to worry about chasing the fees and that kind of thing. So we feel like we have addressed all the major concerns in this document that we have before you tonight. I want to also state that the previous contract was negotiated by the Superior Court, and there was no communication with the contractor or monitoring of that contract. Oconee County will now provide the monitoring of the contract. In addition, after approval of this document, we'll hold a kickoff meeting with all the judges to review the services and answer any additional concerns. We're also going to host an annual meeting with the judges to review performance under the contract. The term of the contract presented tonight matches the previous term negotiated by the Superior Court and matches the Superior Court's current contract with Athens Park County. Contract may be terminated by Oconee County with a 30-day notice, no cause. Charges for probation to the probationers for services is in line with the Superior Court's current contract with Athens Park County. We'll review this again on our June 4th meeting to allow additional time for review by the Superior Court. So all the judges have seen the drafts here. The draft you got is like the 4th version from us going back and forth or negotiating on that. There's still a couple items that are open for further negotiation, so we won't have the final until our June 4th meeting. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Me, got one. If it were to go to Athens Clark, we would write a check to Athens Clark, is that right?
Yes. That would be, our initial estimates from previous meetings we had was going to be right around 300,000, but that was just direct costs. It wouldn't include the indirect costs for supervisor staff. So we were estimating $500,000 of charge to Oconee County for that.
Chairman, what is the length of the term of the proposed contract?
Yeah, this term will run for 5 years. We have it starting on July 1st of 2024, expiring in June 30th, 2020. So that's the same terms we have.
Okay, I know I can go back and look, but I can easily ask you, is it reviewable annually?
This is a 5-year run.
I know, but there's no,
Well, that's what the annual meetings are for. And that's the real thing is that Oconee County can any time with a letter to the probationer in the contract with a 30-day notice. So if they're not before, if it's a 4 calls, we can do it immediately. So if something went really, really bad, we could end it whatever day that happened.
thank you.
We'll see that, we'll talk about this again on June 4th. Next item is discuss the Oconee Parks and Recreation Department and Senior Center Custodial Services Contract. Lisa?
Good evening. Our current custodial service contract ends on June 30th of this year. So an RFP was issued. We received 5 respondents and reviewed those, each of those independently. Based on the qualified submittals for services, Tribon had received the highest ranking. So if approved, and we recommend Tribon to start, services would start with them on July 1st. That includes the Veterans Park Community Center, Herman C. Michael Brannon Building, as well as 9 outlying restrooms that we manage in the park system.
Any questions on this item? All right, for consent? Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thanks.
Any public comment?
We're just trying to follow this, and I wanted to go back on the probation. I just wondered who the servicer was and how much we were talking, and then I wondered how much what's the amount? You said, I know she said Tribon, but I didn't know the amount.
Total amount is $123,600. For Parks and Recreation.
Lisa, let me ask, is that much different than what it was?
That is an increase from our current custodial services. However, I will say that the current contractor has failed to meet our specifications for the contract repeatedly. and has not been on site enough to actually complete the task. So, yeah,
Was the,
they were not the highest respondent by any means, though. They were right in the middle of the,
in the failure by that other company, that burden would fall on your staff?
yes. The burden not only just in failure of task, example being spending under an hour at the OVP Community Center is there's no way to do that on a daily basis and complete all the daily tasks. It's broken up. Our RFP is broken up into daily tasks, weekly tasks that are required, quarterly tasks, semi-annual and annual tasks that we expect them to complete at each of the parks. And it is very specified on what they have to do to each of those. It also includes all the custodial supplies. So your paper products, soap products, dispensers, those type things that they have to provide. And also, we had supply issues with this vendor as well. Kind of puts us in a bind too, and we don't have proper paper products for our patrons.
They come every day.
Yes, sir.
And it would be,
And they do come in the buildings, they're coming in the evenings after we are closing those facilities. In the outlying buildings, the 9 that I spoke of, they will come during, usually typically in the earlier morning hours.
Any other questions? Our next item is discuss the FY 25 ACCG IRMA property and liability insurance renewal.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. Yes, the property and liability insurance policy with ACCG is due for renewal on July the 1st of 2024. ACCG has presented their property and liability insurance renewal packet for FY 25 with the same coverages as FY 24 and a $10,000 deductible. The annual premium would be $416,108 after Oconee County did earn a safety credit discount again of $21,900. And the recommendation is that we stick with these same coverages, and this cost would be accommodated in the proposed FY 25 budget.
Any questions on this item? No, sir. You're all right for consent. Any public comment? Here now, we do have need of an executive session to discuss personnel and litigation.
Motion to go in executive session?
second.
Motion second, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. We need a motion to go back in regular session.
Second.
Got motion second, all in favor?
Aye.
Mr. Sacks,
Motion to adjourn.
we are adjourned.